Nigeria has had more than its fair share of violent crime kingpins, many of whom even sitting in the country's hallowed chambers as reputable gentlemen, but few, if any, can juggle the people's memory, particularly those in eastern parts of Nigeria, quite like the bloodthirsty young adult who became known as Derico Nwamama. Even though he was only 22, Derico's thirst for blood struck fear in the hearts of the people of Anambra State. The majority of Nigerians, most notorious armed robbers, held their reigns of blood and terror in the 70s and 80s, during an era where, despite a country covered in camouflaged green, crime and lawlessness were rife. Okwudili Ndiwe, a 22-year-old, also known by the name Derico Nwamama, or simply as Derico, had risen from a random street urchin to become the leader of a ruthless armed robbery gang that was synonymous with blood and loss in the eyes of the people. At the height of his notoriety, traders could hardly display their goods with any illusion of prominence of attack for fear that the cries of Derico would rent the air and begin another chapter where some would lose their livelihoods and others their life. It was no different at night. Many would say they could only sleep with one eye open because Derico would come when he would, day or night. Whether out of the desire to make big scores or just the sheer absence of fear, Derico would rob the biggest and the most secure banks, carrying away millions of naira and leaving bodies as his token. He and his gang would lay in ambush, waiting for luxurious interstate buses to rob. In December 2000, it is said that Derico attacked a 59-seater bus at the popular Opiweka. After robbing the passengers, they decided to kill all the passengers. Only 4 would survive. After operations, he would often boast of his invisibility, that no man could kill him. At the height of his reign, it was estimated that Derico killed over 100 people, including police officers. Derico's main stopping ground was the markets of Onitsha, but he would also take his blood test from Nnewi to Mpo to the villages of Umuleri and towns in Ihiala. No one was safe, not even the governor, for the uproar of the people and the physical testament to his atrocities made it clear that this was a matter to be troubled by. The people's fear of Derico made room for rumors about his person. Some claimed that he was no human and could not be gunned down by a bullet. What was known was that Derico did not live where he worked. The media suggested at the time that he resided in the country's capital, in faraway Abuja, an entire 450 kilometers from Anambra State. Derico only showed up when he wished to operate. After launching terror, it was onwards to Abuja. It was said that for a while, he maintained a hideout in the town of Umuleri as well as the neighboring Abo in Delta State. It was while here that he would send threatening messages to the police for killing his affiliates and members of his gang. Ironically, it was when he killed one of his most infamous affiliates that the pendulum began to swing away from him. Before Derico became notorious, the local police described the one Chiejine as the state's deadliest armed robber. Like Derico, Onitsha was a stopping ground, and naturally their paths soon crossed. Perhaps because they saw more opportunities in collaborating, the two began to work together in a sense, sharing intelligence and scheduling attacks. Their relationship proved fruitful for a while, but Derico's bloodlust became too much for Chiejine. The two began to clash over territory and their approach to the fine art of robbing people for their money. One day, while they were having a particular loud spat, Derico pumped Chiejine with a rain of bullets, as at that time, Anambra State could not make do with one criminal lord, an Amoro gang leader who was barely a few years into adulthood. Months after his reign of terror began, the people of Anambra State were spent. Governor Mbadinoju was under heavy pressure to explore options outside the Nigerian police. Midway through 2001, Anambra State's division of the Nigerian police began Operation Derico to capture the elusive armed robber. To put it simply, it was unsuccessful. Derico and his gang had an expansive cache of weapons that gave the police a run for their money. He was also notorious for gunning down police officers. Some reports claim that he murdered as much as 25 of them. Torn and running out of options, Governor Mbadinoju, with the support of governors from the neighboring states, brought in a paramilitary force to tackle the spite of crime in the area. The end is near. The end of Derico. Nwamama. They were called the Anambra State Vigilante Service, or as they are commonly known, the Bakassi Boys. In the final days of his reign, Derico became more daring. In June of 2001, he launched an attack on a local police station to secure heavy weapons for a planned raid on a bank in Asaba, the capital of Delta State. He also began to work with other gangs to execute more daring robberies. In tandem, the Nigerian police and the Bakassi Boys turned their heat up on him. Audaciously, on one occasion, operatives of the Special Anti-Robbery Squad Division of the Nigerian Police Force and the Bakassi Boys left for Abuja, where they carried out a raid on Derico's residence. The objective escaped, but two of his notorious lieutenants were killed and his cache of weapons seized. Desperate Derico began to move sporadically. It was during one of his trips that the Bakassi Boys got wind of his location and mounted an ambush that led to his arrest. On the 3rd of July 2001, the vigilante group heard that Derico was on his way from his hideout in Abo to Onitsha. The Bakassi Boys lay in, waiting at the end of the Niger Bridge for his commute. Soon enough, at the bridgehead, Derico was identified in a commuter bus and subsequently arrested. The Nigerian police requested that he did be released for investigation and prosecution, but no trust and assurance that he would meet what he deserved. The Bakassi Boys refused. 6 days after Derico was captured, the Bakassi Boys drove, singing and chanting defiantly, from their base to the popular Ochanja Market Junction. A shout of approval and celebration tore through the air of Onitsha and other parts of Anambra State. The Bakassi Boys left out their vehicles and unveiled their prize catch, Derico Nwamama. Few had seen the robber or even knew what he looked like, but what they saw, a body cut deep by machetes and beaten into a sad pulp, was not what they expected. The Bakassi Boys had built a forlorn reputation for savagery with their treatment of captured armed robbers and suspects. Many expected Derico would meet a similar fate. Before them was evident that they were on their money. My name is Odi, alias Derico. After a crowd had gathered, one of the senior commanders of the Bakassi Boys addressed them about the group's intention. He spoke about how they were not in the state for politics, but to restore law and order. Then he handed the microphone to Derico. The once feared robber was feeble under the weight of pain. Once defiant, he was noticeably weak in body and spirit. In the place of desperation, where pride seems to exist no more, he made a final attempt to protect his innocence. There are no certain amount of words he said, but something along this line had been quoted not once or twice. My name is Ode, alias Derico, alias Nwamama. I appeal to you, the good people of Anambra State. Please don't kill me. I don't like evil. It was when I killed Chejine, another suspected robber, that people thought I'm a strong guy. After shouts of pain filled the air, it is said that Derico, perhaps seeing the end was near, began to shout out his sponsors and protectors. He claimed that he had been protected by a member of the National Assembly. While on the run, he also fingered a member of the State House of Assembly and a local government chairman as his sponsor in the states. With the dam of crowd growing stronger, the Bakassi Boys did what they had come for. As quickly as the first shout had filled the atmosphere, a machete landed on Derico's neck. His severed head rolled on the ground as blood trooped in spite from his artilleries. A visible excited crowd shouted his approval and soon descended into songs and praise of the Bakassi Boys. It is said that Derico's body was chopped up and set on fire. This chase and capture of Derico inspired Lancelot's 2001 movie, Isakaba, described as Nigerian's greatest action film. The aftermath of Derico's death brought much pain and trouble for the Bakassi Boys. The police was aggrieved that Derico had been killed despite its call that he should be transferred to their custody. Few days after his death, a number of the Bakassi Boys were captured and held by the police for their roles in the mob killing of Derico. It took the governor's intervention and massive public outcry for the Bakassi Boys to be released and the chapter on Derico's life and death to be closed. Much can be said about the mob culture in Nigeria, especially as mob killings still continues into 2023. Depending on which side of the circle you stand on, it also shows the people's mistrust of the local law enforcement, where detainees are released for the right amount of money and crime hardly ever never happened without police complicity, allegedly. Even more can be said about Derico and the condition that influences choices. We can speak of the poverty and the absence of opportunities, but what was characteristics of any young man in his shoes? Yet, what we remember is the terror he unleashed, his daring confidence, his weapons and amulets, and mostly a lack of restraint that put power and the ability to wield it at the center of its methods. Stories like this, that of Derico Nwamama and a host of other criminal gangs in Nigeria, ends only in one way: death for them and pain for their loved ones.